Okay, today we're in chapter 18 of Alma, and we're going to get right into it because there's a lot in this. So, King Lamoni's servants go and show and testify what happened with Ammon standing up to these Lamanites that went to scatter the flocks and show him the arms. If you notice, it just goes right into the story because really this chapter thing is arbitrary. And it came to pass that they caused King Lamoni caused his servants to stand forth and testify of all things which they had concerning the manner, and they testified what they had seen and heard of the faithfulness of Ammon in preserving the flocks. And notice how many times we see power in this. And I also marked great spirit in here because I thought about marking it in red, but I'm marking it in yellow at this point as a show that the Great Spirit is an idea that they have that for God, but it's not complete yet, and it will be complete, and by the end of the chapter. So it shows that he had great power, and then they thought, well, is he the Great Spirit? This is more than a man. Behold, this is not this the Great Spirit that doth send such great punishments upon this people because of their murders? And they answered the king and said, I like this. Whether he be the Great Spirit or a man, we know not. But this much we do know, that he cannot be slain by the enemies of the king, neither can they scatter the king's flocks when he's with us, because of his expertness and great strength. Therefore we know that he is a friend to the king. And now, O king, we do not believe that a man has such great power, for he cannot be slain. So they believe he's got to be something. If he's not the Great Spirit, he's got to be something supernatural, basically. I like to read the whole thing, and I know that I can't in here, so I'm because there's a lot to get through, and we'd be here for over a half an hour just reading it and discussing it. So I'm going to go through some of it. Sometimes I'll skip a little bit. And then he says, well, now I know that it's Great Spirit. He's come down at this time to preserve your lives, that I might not slay you as I did your brethren. Now, this is the Great Spirit of whom our fathers have spoken. See, so they mention this. Oh, there's a Great Spirit. They're really on this, about this. And they talk about how the Great Spirit was there, and notwithstanding, even though he just didn't have anything in their lives. That's why I'm saying it's not like Heavenly Father. They basically say, well, the Great Spirit's there, but it doesn't matter what we do. And he feels guilty because of the people he'd slain. And it just talks about the practice of the Lamanites going and scattering the flocks as a regular thing. It was something that they just had in their culture. And then he asks this wonderful question, well, where is this man that has such great power? What's happened to him? And they say, well, he's actually just feeding your horses and getting them ready for you, because you're going to go and see your father. And it's like, oh, wait, you're saying that he remembers to do that after he's done that? Why is he not here saying, hey, how great am I? He's not. He's actually remembering everything. Now notice, highlighted, I had power highlighted, but now we have faithfulness highlighted. Look at how Ammon shows forth qualities that we should look to emulate in our own lives. We may have power to do the things which the Lord wants us to do. We may have immense amount of power to do amazing physical feats, even sometimes. Um, but to see the faithfulness to our friends and family, showing our love towards them and remembering them is a really good thing to do. Um, and um, as it says here, surely there has not been any servant among all my servants that has been so faithful as this man. Even he doth remember all my commandments and execute them. Um, Reminds me of Joseph of Egypt. That's the sort of servant that he was. Now I surely know this is the Great Spirit, and I would desire him to come unto me, but I durst not. Could you imagine the feeling of this poor guy that he feels like he's actually going to be in the presence of Great Spirit? So when Ammon gets done, he comes to the king. He's done. He needs to go and report and says, yeah, your horses are ready. When he comes there, the countenance of the king was changed, a little bit somber now, and he was about to return out of his presence, and one of the king's servants said unto him, Rabbana, which is being interpreted powerful. Oh, there's the word powerful again, or great king, considering their kings to be powerful. Thus he said, Rabbana. Notice it's a comma there. Rabbana, the king desireth thee to stay. In this text, in this context, he's saying to Ammon, great and powerful, the king desireth thee to stay. They're not saying the great and powerful king. They're saying you're great and powerful. And Ammon's just like, oh, okay. And he sits there. And then it says that he sits there for an hour. And a lot of people say, well, that's according to their time. I figure it's a translation, and according to the translation, hour was the closest time period to whatever they would have called it. So it was still around an hour in our time. And I think, yeah, an hour just sitting there doing nothing. But then again, you got to remember what kind of respect they showed their kings as well. And then he says, what desirest thou of me, king? After an hour, it's like, okay, well, he's not speaking, I better say something. And it came to pass that Ammon, being filled with the Spirit of God, therefore he perceived the thoughts of the king. I'm kind of thinking, this to me has a bit of comedic taste to me, because I'm thinking after an hour you probably would guess that there's something up. But what he says, you could kind of guess that anyway. Is it because thou hast heard that I defended the servants of thy flock and thy flocks, and slew the 7 of their brethren with the sling and the sword, and smote off their arms of others, in order to defend thy flocks and servants? Behold, is this the cause of thy marvelings? Yeah, well, maybe, just what everybody else is talking about. I say unto you, what is it that thy marvelings are so great? Behold, now I think this is the key. I think this is where King Lamoni goes, wait a minute, this is my thought. Behold, I am a man, and am thy servant. Therefore, whatsoever thou desirest, which is right, that will I do. By saying those words, he's saying, I am not the Great Spirit. Somehow, those words, you know how sometimes you'll say something that just seems just mundane to you, but it really touches somebody's heart. I think that's what's happened here. And when the king heard this, that he could discern his thoughts, he is really taken back. And then he does open his mouth, and he says, who art thou? Art thou the Great Spirit? He knows all things. And Ammon answered and says, I'm not. And he says, how knowest thou the thoughts of my heart? Thou mayest speak boldly. I know, like this, that he's saying, up to this point, you don't speak unless the king tells you to speak. And now he's saying, you speak, please, just speak whatever you want, and tell me concerning these things, and also tell me by what power ye slew and smote off the arms of my brethren, and scattered my flocks. And so he does, and he goes, whatever you desire, whatever you desire. I guard you, but with my army, but I know that you're more powerful than them. Now, Ammon, being wise yet harmless, I love that saying, being wise yet harmless. I think we could all aspire to being like that a little bit. He said unto Lamoni, wilt thou hearken unto my words, if I tell thee by what power I do these things? And this is the thing I desire of thee. So all he has is just listen to my words. And King answered him and said, Yea, I believe all thy words. And thus he was caught with guile. I love that. Here he is. He's just caught out. He's ready. And so now Alma spake unto him with boldness, and said unto him, Believest thou there is a God? Now this is a great way of how you should work if you're talking to somebody. Notice he says, Is there a God? He answered, I don't know what you mean. And Ammon says, Believest thou there is a great spirit? Now notice I underline that, because Ammon is going to say, here's the great spirit. And he said, Yea. And Ammon said, This is God. And Ammon said unto him again. Now notice I underline great spirit in red now, because now he talks about the great spirit as being God at all times. Believest thou that this great spirit, who is God, created all things which is in heaven and in earth? And he said unto him, I believe he created all things in the earth, but I don't know the heavens. Ammon said unto him, The heavens are the place where God dwells, and all his holy angels. See how he builds on each little thing. He just says, okay, this is it, this is it. I don't know how long this took after this. He says, Is the heaven above the earth? He says, Yea, he looketh down on the children of men. He knows all the thoughts and intents of the heart. For by his hand were they all created from the beginning. What a wonderful understanding of God, knowing the thoughts and intents of the heart. I believe all these things which thou hast spoken. Art thou sent from God? Then he explains who he is. Oh, I am a man. I'm a man and man in the beginning was created after the image of God. And I am called by his Holy Spirit to teach these things unto this people, that they may be brought to a knowledge of that which is just and true. Oh, what just beautiful way that he describes things here. And a portion of that Spirit dwelleth in me, which giveth me knowledge and also power, according to my faith and desires which are in God. So he lets him know where he got these powers. This is answering all of King Lamoni's questions. And then he goes from the creation of Adam down through the records, through the prophets, and on to Lehi, and then rehearsed everything that happens with Lehi, and rehearsed the rebellions of Laman and Lemuel. I don't know how that would have been taken, but it was taken quite well, because they are already in his hands, and they believe anything he's saying, because he's been faithful to him, and he has answered his questions appropriately. And then he expounded that. I love this. But this is not all, for he expounded unto them the plan of redemption, which was prepared from the foundation of the world, and he also made known unto them concerning the coming of Christ, and all the works of the Lord did he make known unto them. And he believed all, and the king believed all these words. There's a lot in there. He taught him a lot. It must have been hours and hours, or days even. I don't know how they did this, but in the end, after teaching him all these things, it seems like it was one sitting to me. He began to cry unto the Lord, saying, O Lord, have mercy according to thy abundant mercy. And thou, which thou hast upon the people of Nephi, have upon me and my people. Can you feel the desire of his heart? And when he said this, he fell to the earth as if he were dead. Could you imagine if that was the end of this? It's like, okay, well, that's the last time I pray, but it isn't. So, but it is the end of our chapter today. So they go and lay him, and he sits there for 2 nights, and we're going to discover what happens to him tomorrow. So today, don't forget to pray, and know there's something better if you do fall as if you're